Okay, I'd like to call the real property. It gets everybody's attention. And we have a motion approving the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
By Supervisor Dickinson. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. So the first item is a request to approve the list of chargebacks.
There are 2 pilot agreements. We just need to charge back to the city to be able to get our money.
Okay. Have a motion. Motion by Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, B, request to approve the 2015 benefit tax roll and set a public hearing.
This isn't something that normally goes through our committee, but we actually got the figures early this year, so Joan had suggested that we run it through the Real Property Committee this year instead of just putting it all through the board. So this is something that's typically passed at a regular board meeting. So that's why she's asking to have me have the public hearing set as well.
Mm-hmm. So it would just be a resolution determining that that list of properties are the properties that are benefited by the Warren County Sewer District.
Yes.
The industrial park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's the dollar figure, the $5,501.52.
Okay. I'd ask for a motion approving that list.
So moved.
The public hearing. Motion by Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor Molino.
No, I'm the second.
Question.
I was
Okay,
gonna ask the question.
Supervisor Beatty, seconded. Molino, question.
Where is this district now?
This is in Queensbury.
And where does the sewage go?
Where
To-
does the sewage go?
Yeah.
To Glens Falls,
Glens
ultimately. It used to be, many years ago, this was a, combined, well, actually, it still is, a combined industrial park, half of which is in Washington County, half of which is in Warren County, over by the airport area. And years ago, Washington County had a sewer plant, and Warren County would, would ship their sewage to the plant. And then ultimately, that plant was taken out of commission, and agreements were made to have the sewage transmitted ultimately into the pipes that get to, Glens Falls. So, because all of these folks are in, and this is, by the way, a fairly unique thing. You don't normally have county districts, but in this case, this was something that was set up years before I even became county attorney. So this is pre-96.
Worked at the town.
And I worked on this and got this all straightened out to get this benefit tax roll in place. And what it is it provides a mechanism so that the cost associated with the maintenance of the district, operation of the district, and transmission of the sewage is passed on to these individuals. And it's based on what we call a benefit roll or benefit tax basis, which is different than an ad valorem. An ad valorem, as you know, is your standard real property taxes that we assess in the county. This is based on a formula which calculates the amount of benefit the properties are receiving as a result of having this sewage flow. And because you have a benefit tax roll, you're required every year to calculate it out, just like they've done here, and then put out a notice for a public hearing so that anybody who has an interest, obviously the people within the district, can see what their tax rates are going to be, how it was calculated, and if they have any issues, they can come in and talk at the public hearing. I'm happy to report that, as you folks know, this has pretty much been a non-issue in many years because it's been part of our, as was mentioned, it's been handled part of the budget process. We've put out the notices, and generally I don't think I've ever heard of an issue. Maybe this will be the year we do hear of one, though. But everything seems to have operated pretty smoothly at this point. It's been going on for a number of years in this fashion, so I don't expect any surprises, but that's the history on this.
Okay. Supervisor McDevitt.
Maybe just one observation. The facility, which is on Shermantown Road in the city of Glens Falls, it is my understanding historically that was a facility that was owned originally by Ciba Geigy. It ultimately came into the control of the city of Glens Falls. Toured that facility once, and I had someone who was touring it told me the cost of duplicating this facility in today's dollars would be, I think, something on the order of $60 million, I think is what he said. So the point is, if we're talking about shared services and we're talking about trying to, efficiently take care of a problem and take care of economic growth in outlying areas, if Queensbury had to duplicate that facility, it's a very, very significant dollar
Mhm.
item. And I just was, all of the standards and that the federal and state governments put in place, it just, that's kinda, that's my understanding of it anyway.
Mhm. Hope we never have to replace it.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. So there's a dedicated line that goes from the industrial park to the sewage treatment plant?
I don't know if it's dedicated, I know it gets there somehow, it may flow through Queensbury pipes or something, that part I'm not 100% familiar with.
Okay.
It wouldn't surprise me that there is some interconnection someplace, and then ultimately it gets down through the system. Queensbury as a whole, as you know, has several areas that have sewer service, and that ultimately connects to the city at various points and then gets to the plant.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, we're on to, request to delete taxes on Queensbury parcel 309.18-1-33 and Horicon parcel 20.10-1-4.
The piece in Queensbury, is a piece, I actually didn't include the little map in your thing, but it is one that I actually had brought before the committee when we had some questions on properties going to, the tax sale, and this was something that the committee, it was last year or the year before, Twin Channels, that Annabelle Drive, had talked to me and asked me to talk to the assessor and see if there was any way of just merging it into a neighboring property. That can't be done, but the assessor did agree to zero out the value. It's just a little cross-shaped property that's actually like a driveway to the surrounding people. It wasn't anything that we felt could really sell at the tax sale. It would become a problemed parcel. So we did have the assessor from this point forward change the role and zero out the value. However, there is still a tax base of $443.04 that would need to be deleted, and then charged back to the proper entities, being the town and the school, and then the county's portion. And again, then on the other piece that is in Horicon, that parcel is a parcel that just 1 year, it got put for some reason, we believe in error by the past assessor, into roll section 1, because it was in roll section 8, with a religious status, because it was owned by a church. And then the 1 year that it came out, I'm not really sure, we feel that it was in error again by the assessor, but then the following year, the town of Horicon, bought the property. So Mr. Swan has spoke to both the assessor and supervisor, and they're in agreement with, you know, that they feel it was an error, and, so we're asking to delete the taxes on that one as well. For the 1 year, it's $1,023.31, but we would be charging back to proper entities.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Dickinson, any second? Second by Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion? The one in Queensbury, it looks like they paid it for 6 years from 2005.
They did, and then what happened
And they
is
just stopped?
it was John Lipus's property. So he had gone around and bought up a lot of little odd pieces through our tax foreclosures in the past, and didn't do any research, just bought properties.
Right.
And we've sold other ones off. His family did redeem some parcels. He had passed away, and so the family did redeem some, and this particular one was not one that they felt was of any value to do anything with. And again, like I said, it's really just a driveway if you go there to get to these other properties.
Right, so it's not something that would sell at a tax sale?
I don't think so, because they're all using it already.
Yeah.
So the way they probably would look at it is, why.
Got a lot of encumbrances on it, sounds like.
Mhm.
Okay, any, further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, D is request to issue a quitclaim deed to the current owner of Johnsburg parcel 132-1-47.1.
This, we've had an attorney come forward to us and speak to us about this property. This was a property that was in a, tax sale deed back in book 632, page 978. It was on the, tax assessed roll in 1977. However, these taxes were paid by the then owner, which was Mr. Morehouse, and they were in the amount of $177.41, and they got paid on October 14th of 1981. But the county, nowhere can we find where the county ever conveyed or issued anything back to Mr. Morehouse. I know that we do have a resolution out there that says that we must deliver to the current owner a conveyance by deed to replace an original. So that's what they're looking for. It's something to basically clear the title. So I was hoping that the county would agree to issue a quitclaim deed to the current owner, which is Catherine M. Hartley.
Is she some relation to Morehouse, or?
No,
is she
nope, she
current
got the
owner?
property in May of this year. She purchased the property.
From,
A K. Francis Heath, who was a Morehouse.
okay. I make that motion.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Dickinson, second Supervisor Molino, discussion. I don't see that deed on the list of deeds in the chain.
Because that was a tax sale deed, and
Mhm.
it's not noted on there, and, I think back then, in the 70s, I don't think they noted them all on there, on the
Okay.
property record cards,
Mm-hmm.
so, that's probably why it's not there.
So it's probably a lost deed, you don't know for sure,
Well,
was it never issued or lost?
Shelley did do the
yeah.
research, she went downstairs and went through everything that she could go through, and nowhere can she find that the deed was ever issued. She
Mhm.
did find other ones that were
That were
issued
issued,
back, but
right.
not
Right.
this particular one.
There were, I think, a series of 4 that were issued,
Mhm.
for prior years. And then when it came to this one, we searched and couldn't find it, so when that happens, we look to the resolutions of the past, and it says that in these types of instances, you issue a quitclaim deed, or you can issue a quitclaim deed
Mhm.
to clear the title.
Is there a house or building on it or something?
There is a house on the property.
Hope so.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Okay. Let's see. Where's my agenda?
Pending items would be next.
Okay, pending items, prior taxes due, updated the tax bill.
Updated the tax bill, when Supervisor Siebert had brought forward the, tax bill, and not showing enough information in regards to prior taxes due. I have included it, however, I don't have all of yours highlighted. If you were to look in the center of the tax bill, right below where all the tax rates are, and, it does have a note in there that we're gonna include now that says important, prior taxes due, important. That will only show on somebody's tax bill if there is prior taxes due. If there's not prior taxes due, that's not gonna be on the front of your bill. And it says, please see the prior taxes notice on back of this tax bill for additional information. And we also, on the back, if you flip over, at the very top, we have prior taxes may be due. If the front of this bill, of this tax bill indicates prior taxes due and owing, please contact the Warren County Treasurer, 1340 State Route 9, Lake George, New York. And it lists their phone number in bold and immediately. Continued failure to pay all of the taxes may result in your loss of the property. I think it was a great suggestion to add this information on, to make it a little more visible to people if they do have prior taxes due. So we just needed, we had set up a meeting, there was myself, Martin, Mike, Rachel, and Shelley were all involved in the meeting and the discussion of this. and we all agreed to this. We just wanted to bring it back and point it out to everyone else.
Great, good job.
Yeah.
I think this is, very well done. I mean, I don't know how anybody could not now know that they had past taxes due. And your explanation on the back is very, it's in big letters, it's very clear cut. A+ to everybody on that committee who put that together. Anything we can do to help the taxpayers obviously
Right.
helps all of us, so, well
Yeah.
done.
I mean, the only thing that I would like to see, and maybe it's just not possible, is, you know, what years, at least what years are back and the amount. They can't do
We
that.
can't do that because it would be different for everybody,
Yeah.
so there's no way of actually
Easily
putting
doing
that
it.
into the
Yeah.
program.
Mhm.
I mean, when we batch in that they have delinquent taxes, it's just basically a check mark in a box for all the properties in the file that have delinquent taxes, and when they get that check mark, it'll kick this on in the middle and fill the little note down in the bottom that says the prior tax is due. That'll automatically get put on when we batch
Oh,
in
okay.
that they have the delinquent
Oh,
taxes.
is it possible to move that up near where it says important prior taxes due? 'Cause that, I didn't even notice that when I
That
was
little one
looking
in
at
the bottom,
Yeah,
the
where it
little
says
one in the bottom.
46,000.
Oh, no, that
49,000.
just goes there, it's the same for the taxes due, because this bottom piece could be torn off as a stub, for the receiver, so.
Oh, okay, that's the current taxes due.
Yeah, that's the current
That's the prior,
taxes due,
okay.
there is no place to put that in, it would be too difficult, I think, for the treasurer's office first to come up with all those figures for the numerous properties that have outstanding taxes, and then I can't even imagine how we could get it in for each individual parcel.
Would there be any way to have that in a different color?
There's not, 'cause
No.
we strictly print these in black and white. Our machine that we use is strictly black and white, and even then, with the program that we're using, it's all a black and white program.
Okay, well, I think this is, you know, much better than just having that little note down at the bottom, so. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, then we're on to new business updates, payments by taxpayers on foreclosure parcels after last chance meetings.
I have included a list, in your packets of all the properties that are still on for the auction. There is some, and I didn't go through and print all the years and colors, I apologize. But in the town of Bolton, there's parcel 184.02-2-8. That one, he had been granted an extension until September 2nd, but we did give him longer. He came into some issues, he had to include his home as well in the property, 'cause there was outstanding taxes, so when he did the installment agreement, he needed a little more time to come up with more money. So he did end up coming in and getting in an installment agreement on September 23rd. In the town of Horicon, 37-1-76 is a property owned by Michael Monroe. We had also granted him until September 2nd, and I stayed in touch with him, and he did come in on the 19th and actually pay off. He's a self-employed painter, so he was kinda relying on a job to get the job done, to be able to come in and pay. Next would be in Johnsburg, the Edna Mosier property and Richard Mosier. They have since come in and paid, 3 more, I believe, pieces of property, so they still have 2 that are left in. We've had continuous contact with Mr. Mosier. I've had contact with him, I believe Supervisor Monroe has had contact with him, and we've stayed in touch with him, and he has come in and paid 3 out of the 5, actually redeemed both of the residences and, the lumber mills.
That brings up something I'd like to talk about further at the end of the meeting, is because, as I understand it, under state law, if you have multiple parcels, you can't pay off just one of them, and in this situation, for some reason,
He actually.
It was in separate, there were
Right.
separate installment agreements, so he could do it, but it
Yeah.
just struck me as being very unfair that if he could not do that, he would have lost three parcels that he could have paid for. And I think we should just, tell the legislature, we don't think that's fair and should change it. But we can talk about it more at the end of the meeting, but,
I would agree with you.
yeah.
It doesn't seem right.
Okay, then if we move on to the town of Queensberry, there is 253-1-17 owned by a Robert Botto. Robert Botto is deceased. A grandson had come forward and talked to us about going into an installment going into paying the taxes off, in full. He, however, had his brother-in-law contact us after that, and, the brother-in-law has decided not to pay, so I don't feel that one, anybody's gonna move forward with on paying, and they had not gone to the last chance meeting, they had just contacted our office for approval to see if we would allow them to come in and pay, and I think that there's really some financial issues.
So is that going on, the audit?
That one's going to stay on,
Do you have any particulars about how big is it, any buildings?
I almost wanna say at one time there might have been a trailer on it. It looks like there might be power to the property, so I would assume possibly a septic system might be there as well. I'm not 100%. I didn't go on and totally research it, but you could see where the power had been.
Okay, so it's a small lot.
It's not a large lot, nope. Further down, 309.9-3-82 at 21 Main Avenue on Joyce Bueller. We did get approval on this one to come in and, allow them to pay off, and they have paid off the outstanding taxes. They came in on September 12th. That one was not one that came to the last chance meeting. And then if you flip the page, in Stony Creek, the first property, 259-1-19 is American Land Acquisition. I've been in constant contact with Mr. Javino in regards to this property. He's been trying very hard to come up with the money, and he did, contact the county attorney's office the other day, and then myself, in regards to seeing if he could come in and pay. So I figured this was just yesterday. I told him I would bring it to committee today. He has $5,000, and as of September 15th, he was eligible to go into an installment agreement. So he's asking if he can go into an installment agreement at this time. I asked him if he could be here by Friday, and he said he was not sure if Friday would work, but he could definitely come in here on Monday of next week and enter into an installment agreement, and he would bring in the $5,000. He stated that he had that money. That wouldn't be the 25% figure he would need. He would only need almost $3,000. It's $2,768 to go into an installment agreement. But he said he would be willing to bring in $5,000. So I guess I'm asking to see if you would like to approve for Mr. Javino of American Land Acquisition to enter into that installment agreement.
You feel comfortable with that?
I do.
Okay. Motion made by Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Supervisor Molino. Discussion.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, our office has made the, application to the Supreme Court for final judgment in the foreclosure action. The motion is returnable on October 9. I think that what we're going to be doing, just so that the record's clear on this, I think that what we're going to be doing is, in light of the fact that a number of property owners have come in and paid, entered into an agreements, redeemed, whatever the case may be, since we made the motion, since we filed the papers with the court, I think we're gonna be filing, as the same thing we did last year, an amended application, probably early next week, in time to mail out to those taxpayers who are represented by attorneys who have answered the petition, et cetera. I think that and Mr. Javino is obviously in the foreclosure right now and would be subject to the judgment. If this goes on much past Monday, I think it's gonna be very problematic for my office, with a lot of additional paperwork and, amended this and amended that. I'd like to avoid that, so, while I fully support, the opportunity for Mr. Javino to come in and pay, I'm hoping that the authority to do so, or allowing, giving Lexi the authority to do so, is really gonna be no further than Monday.
I would change my resolution to restate that, he doesn't show up. on
Authorize
Monday.
the acceptance of the payment of,
By
payment to
the
get an
close of
installment, as
business.
long as it's done by Monday, whatever that is.
Yep, if he's not there Monday, it's off.
This coming
The
Monday.
fifth.
That sounds right. Fifth, sixth,
See, the
seventh,
fifth or the
eighth.
sixth?
It sounds right. I think it's the fifth.
Six.
This coming Monday.
This coming Monday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, on to the next one, the 246.19-1-23, Margaret Kessy. She was not on the last chance list, however, her husband showed up at the last chance meeting and we did hear from him. We did grant them an extension until, September 2nd, as we did for most people. However, we have not heard from them. I've contacted, numerous people that had until the 2nd of September on the 29th of August, and, gave them a reminder that September 2nd was, the last day for them to come in. I left them a message, I did not hear back from them. I called them back again on, September 5th and left them another, message stating that this was staying in the foreclosure. I have still yet to hear anything from them, but I have given it all effort to try to, prompt them to come in, but I have not gotten any response back. The next
I don't know,
person-
I mean, there's nothing more we can do with that, if they're just unresponsive.
Right, I mean, I've made, like I said, numerous calls.
Mhm.
The next one down is 260-1-17, Thomas Gallagher. They did come in on September 5th, so they were ones that were granted till the 2nd, but we did give them a few days, cause they had to, overnight paperwork for signatures. Down in Thurman was another Mosier piece that was paid on the 18th, which was 194-1-27. And that's it for extensions. Everything else that's on the list is everything that we believe is going to the auction. As of this morning, there is 38 parcels on the
But
list to go to auction.
What's the class code for residential? I just don't know.
It depends, it would be in the 200s or anything
So the 240,
residential.
210?
Yes, those first two in Bolton are residential. Yep, 300s are vacant, 500s, was the campground, it's a commercial.
Looks like there's 8 or 9 there, got residents, but no indication of, what category. Yes, I don't know.
Just out of curiosity, on the Warrensburg, there's two pieces that says Warren County, Warren.
Yeah, you'll see them throughout the list, they're ones that we possibly took at last year's tax sale, and so they're back on the list, either they sold and the person changed their mind, or they didn't sell, but I believe we sold everything, and usually at that point, what happens sometimes is the first bidder decides they don't want it, we offer it to the second bidder, and they may not want it either, so then we put it back in for the next year's foreclosure.
Okay. So, I guess we need a motion to approve this and ratify what I've done,
I think so, that's what we talked
Yeah,
about at
yeah.
the last chance meeting,
Yeah.
was to, ratify the decisions of the chair of the committee with respect to these, taxpayers that Lexi's reported on, and accepting her report.
I mean, that's been our policy in the past, that we go to this last chance meeting, but then there's people that still are struggling, or they miss it by a day or two, and then, so discretion, I've had discretion to approve those things, but then I would just like to have it ratified by the full committee, just so. Okay, motion by Supervisor McDevitt, second by Supervisor Dickinson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, so we're on to, approval for Lexi to attend the 2014 Association of County Directors of Real Property Tax Services Fall Conference.
It's October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It's at the hotel at Vernon.
Vernon Downs, okay. Okay.
I have no, I have nothing to do with the choice.
Could you play $2 on 4-7?
Party time.
Give me the money.
I'll move on that, I don't wanna go anymore.
Good enough, huh?
Motion by
Too much
Supervisor
information.
Dickinson, second by Supervisor Molino. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, discussion of map filing fees.
This is something that I, took to my budget committee, in the last budget meeting that was pretty lengthy. I was there, but unable to talk because it was just such a long meeting. So, both Frank and, Paul said that it would be okay to bring it to committee instead. Just trying to, you know, possibly raise a little more revenue for the county. We have map filing fees when somebody files, a subdivision map or an amendment or boundary line agreements. There's a fee schedule in our office, something that was actually set out there by, the law. So, back in 1992, there's a resolution 256, by the county that we set our fee at. There is the fees, you can impose the filing fees not to exceed $25 for a 1 through 3 lot subdivision, $50 for a 4 through 9 lot subdivision, and $100 for a 10 lot or more subdivision. Back in '92, when we agreed, to this resolution, they did not set the $25 filing fee for the lots 1 through 3 subdivision maps. Not 100% sure why, but it is out there by law that we can use those fees not to exceed the 25, 50, and 100. We're already charging the 50 and the 100 for the other two, so, it's a fee that I thought that would be something that we could, you know, possibly charge in our office. I did a little bit of research, which I included in there, and as of August 26th of this year, if we had been charging that $25 fee, I know it's not a lot of money, but we could have raised an extra $1,125, which if they continued at that type of filing throughout the rest of the year, I think that it would have been $1,650 total by the end of the year. So, it is something that I just wanted to bring forward in case anybody would be interested, in passing a resolution to change those fees to what the guidelines of the law are, allowing us to do the $25.
Do we have a feel for what maybe Saratoga is charging, or?
They do
or
charge that. They charge the $25, the $50, and the 100, and I did check throughout the counties, and the majority of them do charge those fees. I'm not sure why back in 1992 we chose not to, but that is the typical of what people charge.
That's a long time, 92 to where we are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Jim,
Yes.
you know, it's not a lot of money. On the other hand, I think that, not just Warren County, but all counties get their fair share of tax money. And although it's $25 a page and so forth, I'd be against this. We haven't charged since '92. I don't wanna start finding other ways to start saying, how can we get more out of every taxpayer who goes through this process? It doesn't make sense to me. So I appreciate, Lexi, you doing the research on it. Thank you very much. but I'd be against this.
Okay.
I would probably
It's
too.
not 25 per page though, it's 25, if
Per
the
file.
subdivision is up to 3 lots, it's 25, 125
Mr. Chairman, if I would just like to give the budget committees, you know, our group, not the committee, but the budget group, the team that works on the budget, our perspective. And that is, what we are trying to do in the county is maintain our tax rates for our general residents. You know, the general tax rate for the county as low as possible. In fact, we're trying, as you know, to decrease it. That's the ultimate goal. And as part of trying to maintain or decrease that tax levy, the thought pattern of the team was that where there are services that are being utilized and of value to the citizens, a particular group of citizens, such as building inspections, who, you know, that's unique, not everybody needs that, filing subdivision maps, other types of fees. The thought is not so much to use this as a tool to raise additional funds that we could simply spend any way we want, but rather use the funds in those particular cases to help us maintain or decrease that tax rate. So that's the theory. And I think if it's looked at in that light, then I think you could see more of where we're coming from. Who should pay for the service? Should it be a general tax-based service, or should there be some fees? I know the individual towns go through the same issue, like for instance with town transfer stations. Who should pay for that? Should that be on the general tax base? Should it be fee-based? Should be a combination? Certainly, there's no right or wrong answer, and we respect that. But I just thought it was important to indicate where the budget team was coming from on this. It's not just to raise money so that we can spend more money. It's to raise funds in areas where it would help us to offset that need to increase taxes.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with the fee. I would just maybe make a couple of points. I can see how hard Lexi and Martin's office have worked to save homes for homeowners in this county. We go to unusual personal length to try to achieve that objective and keep people in their homes. The value on another service that Lexi's office provides for the aerial type mapping systems in this county are absolutely superb. They make Saratoga County and Washington County look like hikers, okay? The ability to take a piece of property and to scope down on it with all of the surrounding characteristics on that is invaluable for some people trying to understand that. And those services are very, very inexpensive for the person that needs something like that. So,
and it was very expensive to get to that point, because I sat through a lot of that, $1 million
but again, you compare
15 years.
You compare it to what other counties are doing in that category.
Right.
We are years ahead in terms of, I don't know how we've done it, okay, but we're there, okay. So I don't know. I think someone that's out there doing a subdivision, it's just we're giving that person some value. I don't have a problem with it, and I don't have a problem making the motion.
Okay, so motion by Peter, any second? Second by Supervisor Molino. Further discussion? Yes.
In order to file a subdivision map of 2 or 3 lots, needs to be surveyed.
Right. Yeah, you can't just attach it to the deed.
No.
Yeah.
Once you get it surveyed, I can tell you right now that $25 pales
Yeah, in comparison
in
with
comparison to what it costs you
Yeah.
to get that map done.
Right.
Not a big proponent of raising fees or taxes, but I don't see this problem
Okay.
here.
Further discussion? Okay, if not, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Ms. Beatty? Okay, thank you. Carried. And discussion of RPS report fees.
This was the second paragraph on that same little letter. It was just another thing that I looked into possibly, you know, raising some more money in our office. We do a lot of custom reports for a lot of people, that request this information, and it does take us time to create these reports. We use the state program that we have, and we pull out specific data that they're looking for to create the report. So I did do some research and checked throughout the state, and people charge all different prices for these, anywhere from, some people it's just free, and some people go up to, you know, $20, $25. Some of these custom reports, there is one in Schuyler County, they do $20 minimum charge for a standard report, and then $50 for a custom report. There is a lot of time that goes into these. Sometimes people are looking for very specific information, and they want labels done from this. So we have to, if we're doing the labels for them, we have to go in and pull out any of the duplicate owners, and so we save everything down in Excel, but some of these reports really do take a lot of time, to put into them, to pull all this information out and sort out exactly what they're looking for, and then put it into a, mail format for them. So, it is just something else that I wanted to put out to you to see if there, you know, if it would be anything that, the Real Property Committee would be interested in doing, adding a fee for something on those custom reports.
Dennis?
What kind of reports are the fire departments
A lot of the fire departments and EMSs actually get labels from us, and on top of the labels, they get just a printout of all the names and addresses, because they're looking for people in their district that they can send out fundraisers to, so that they can get money in from them to help.
You charge for the labels?
We do charge for the labels.
Labels, right.
Yep,
Okay.
we do. We don't charge for doing the report, we just charge them a fee for the labels.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, again, the same thinking of the budget team applies here, except that there's another, I think, important difference in this particular case, and this is a service that we're providing that we don't have to provide. So, and it's a service that has a value to it, obviously, to the folks that are using it. So those were the things that we were looking at, that this is more of a business model, if you will, type of analysis, and it just seemed to us that this would be something, here again, that the committee would want to consider, and the board, whether or not you want, you know, how you want to go about funding this type of project.
I mean, there is one difference here, I think, though, that if it's for fire and EMS, I mean, if Warren County charges, you know, the Chestertown Fire Commissioners, then they just put it on that tax, so the taxpayers are paying anyways if it's going through a fire or EMS, but for individuals and businesses, that's not the case, but.
Right, for towns or like fire and EMS, we don't charge the same rate as to the general
Yeah.
public. That's like 2.5 cents a label, I believe.
Okay.
And it would be 5 cents a label for the general public.
Mhm.
But it's the time that goes into the report
Right.
that isn't being considered.
Okay.
So is $20
Pleasure.
gonna cover that time?
I didn't actually sit down and actually calculate that out, 'cause like I said, again, you know, I mean, it varies all over the board. I just kinda grabbed some prices throughout the state of New York. Some people set up just a setup fee, and then they charge so much per page. So, it varies.
I'd be interested in what you're thinking of charging. I agree with Fred, I wouldn't do the fire departments
I think labels would kinda be handled differently. There is some people that get just custom reports. And at this point, I mean, we've done a lot of custom reports and just saved them down in Excel, and we've emailed them to people. If we're not printing them out, we're not charging them anything. We're emailing it to them, so there is no fee attached. So there's been numerous reports that have gone out of our office that has taken a lot of time for my staff to create, and then we're just shipping it off to them for nothing. You know, like I said, Schuyler County is 25 cents per page with a minimum charge of $10 on a standard report. standard report, what they're talking about in B4 is there is something that's in there that's just standard report. It's just a basic, you go in, you click on it, and it's gonna just pull that. It's not a custom report. Custom report is where you have to actually go in and choose all the fields that you need the information for, bring it in, save it down into Excel, and then manipulate all the information in Excel to what you want.
I think those things we should be charging for.
I mean, do you have a recommendation as to what we should charge?
I
if we're
think
gonna
that
charge?
we should charge at least a minimum of $25, you know, and then so much per page after that, if they're getting a page. If we're emailing it to them, okay, they're not getting a page, it's just going to them electronically, but I still think that they should have a setup fee that they should have to charge. You know, I mean, like I said, they were charging $20 for a standard report, which is very simple. Go in and you're basically in there and you're clicking on it and it's creating it, and then you're saving it down and sending it to them. But, you know, it depends. I know my deputy spent with one lady, the amount of time, 'cause the lady kept calling her back and wanting to change stuff. I mean, she probably, in the long run, by the time all was said and done, it was a day's worth of work. You know, granted, it was spread out over time, over a few days, but, and that was in between trying to do her other job. You know, so there is a lot of time sometimes that goes into these, you know, and if you're spending 8 hours on something, I can't understand why somebody would complain to even spend $50 on that.
Yes.
Fred, I think what I'd like to see is have Alexi go back and concentrate on the, individual and business people, and see if she can get some numbers on what she thinks they ought to charge. I mean, you gotta be careful. I know in my business, it's becoming a serious problem, emailing and stuff all over the place. Security and who's using it and how they're using it and how it's emailed. I still think you need to take that in consideration when you charge. You charge a base fee to put the information together and charge them a handling fee. Based on how large the report is, that would be commensurate with charging them per page.
I mean, and the other thing that occurs to me, is there any issue with FOIL? I mean, where there's maximum charges under FOIL for records that currently exist, right?
Well, but there's a difference between records that exist and
Right,
actually,
and the ones that are newly
and actually
created.
preparing a
Right,
report or
report,
a service.
yeah.
I mean, it does strike me that, you know, we're not, one of the exclusions to FOIL is when you were saying these are records of ours that we maintain, and now we're giving them out for fundraising purposes. That caught my attention a little bit. I suppose that, you know, if we do that, we do that. I understand why EMS and fire departments need to do that. But if we're doing that for them, then when somebody else comes forward and says, I want this information, we're asking them to actually sign something that says that they're not going to use that for fundraising or solicitation purposes. I think we need to kind of look at being consistent here with what we're doing and what we're not doing. We provide lists of names, addresses, et cetera. And as you know, there's that provision in FOIL that says that we're otherwise can give that information out, provided that the person that we're giving it out to is not going to use it for fundraising purposes. So this is the first I had heard about. Heard about this. Not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying maybe we ought to take a look at that.
All the information that we use is public record. It's all in the assessment rolls that are online.
Right, I don't think there's any question the public records are accessible. It's just, you know, when you take the extra step of creating a report, how does it change the choice? Yeah. Okay, so is everyone satisfied with that? Just refer it back to Lexi to come back to the next meeting? Okay.
What would you like me to bring back to you? What is it that you're exactly looking for?
Well, what you recommend for individuals and businesses, you know, just some sort of rough analysis of what it costs to do these reports, and then a recommendation of what we should be charging for individuals and businesses, and if it's any different for fire and EMS.
And when you get that flushed out, you should contact Martin and
Right.
make sure he's happy if that's.
I'd also like to know how many counties don't charge for these services. You mentioned some don't charge anything, some do.
Right.
If that's,
Um,
I don't know if that's a lot of work,
well-
Lexi, but, you know,
Kind of, because I did put something out on the listserv and I only got response from a handful, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 counties out of the whole state, so.
responding back to you.
Exactly, so
Mhm.
that's
I like
all
that
that I got
participation.
response, you know, so it is kinda hard to get that information. But I will see what I can get back to you guys.
You throw it out again, maybe we'll get another 12. Maybe throw it again,
It'll be the
another
same
12.
12.
Okay.
But I will see what I can bring back.
Anything else, Lexi? for the agenda?
I believe that's it.
Okay, so the only other thing I would like to add is that we've had this discussion many times at this committee, but the law used to be that, you could always pay the oldest tax you owed, and many people took advantage of that, and they just frankly paid the tax. It was usually, I think it was the 3-year oldest tax. And then the law was changed to say you can no longer do that, so you gotta pay the newest one, and then, I think you have to go in reverse order too, don't you?
Yes.
The newest, and then the second newest, and then the third newest, which, that came as, I'm sure, as a shock to many people who are used to paying, 3 years in arrears. So I think this committee opposed that at that time and asked the legislature not to do that or to repeal it, and that didn't happen. But then in addition to that, we have this, requirement that if you have multiple properties and they're all in the installment agreement, you have to pay all of them or we don't accept anything, which seems to me just totally unfair. I mean, this situation with the Mosers in, Thurman, it had enough money to pay 3 of the properties, and for some reason, these were separate installment agreements. It wasn't all one installment agreement, so we were able to accept it. But if that wasn't the case, we would have turned down, their money to pay off 3 of the properties, and said, no, we're gonna sell all of them because you can only pay for 3, which strikes me as not being fair to the taxpayer. Yes.
If someone illegally structured each individual piece of property.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, if somebody's savvy or they got a good lawyer, they'll put it in separate names,
Don't have the money to
but.
do that, okay, but it just seems, someone that has a couple of bucks and you just, structure it, so
Right.
that wouldn't even apply, but,
Right.
but to,
Right.
someone that's really stretched out, it's not structured
It's
that
kind of
way.
a trap for somebody that doesn't know the whole procedure.
So what do you?
That's what it's right. I mean, so it's nothing we can control, but we can say what our position is to the legislature and get to our legislators and tell them we think that should be changed. If we do, I do. Yes.
A recommendation, Mr. Chairman, certainly the debate having this morning is fine. I've talked to Mike Swan about this, and I know he's not here today, but I would recommend that, just offer that, I think before you take an official position, I would like you to, consider hearing from him on this. And maybe he fully supports
Right.
what you're saying.
Okay, that's fine.
That was my thought.
So we just put it on the agenda for next month. Yes.
Fred,
Yeah.
as I said before, I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think it's unfortunate,
Yeah.
when people, for whatever reason, become tax strapped. And if they own several parcels and one of them has their home on it,
Right.
I think that's.
That's the
great
situation
thing
here. There were
to be
two.
able to-
There were 2 homes. One was the taxpayer's home, the other one was his mother's, where his mother was living.
Right.
And so if we followed that rule, and we didn't have these separate installment agreements, we would, he would come here saying, I can save two of the houses and 1 business property, and we would say, no, because you can't save all 5 of them.
Right,
So,
so,
yeah.
talk. to
Okay,
Mike.
we'll
Talk
hear
to
from
Mike.
Mike at the next meeting. Any other business? If not, motion to adjourn. Motion,
Sure.
Dennis, seconded by Lino. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you, Lexi. Sure. Appreciate it.
I love
I'll
where-
sign this.